Hello and welcome. This is all you need to know. I'm Agam Akhil. Let's start by talking about the global markets. At this point in time, mixed cues coming in. While we did have the American indices decline by as much as 1%, Europe, on the other hand, held, excuse me, I'm sorry, held on, and we did see some advances coming in the European indices. However, we're seeing some weakness when it comes to the Asian markets right now, considering the fact that we've seen both the Nikkei as well as the Hang Seng come off, and that's actually impacting the SGX Nifty too. So we have about 0.5% cuts as far as the SGX Nifty goes. And coming down to your American depository receipts, what we was also seen is, cuts in the likes of Wipro, ICICI Bank, or for that matter, Dr. Reddy's and Infosys. On the other hand, we saw some gains coming through for the likes of Vedanta and HDFC Bank. But when it comes to our own markets, last Friday, we did see advances in the Nifty, which advanced by around 1.7%. The mid-cap and the small-cap indices did advance too, but not as much as the major indices. And we had mixed cues, actually, when it comes to some of the banking indices, considering the PSU banking index declined by 0.6%. On the other hand, strength seen in the Nifty banking index. But let's move on and talk about your other sectors. And again, it was a mixed play coming through, but the Nifty metal index did hold on and advanced by as much as 3%. But moving in, when it comes to institutional flows, there really wasn't too much to speak for, considering we just saw about a little less than 200 crores move out from the FII segment. On DIIs, on the other hand, plumbing back in another 853 odd crores. But when it comes to the contributors, what we're actually looking at is advances for HDFC and HDFC Bank, along with Reliance Industries, providing the bulk of the strength that we saw last Friday. On the other hand, because of the fact that we saw the Indian rupee strengthen against the dollar to a certain extent, we did see some weakness for a whole host of these IT companies. But when it comes to the futures and options space, again, we did see a lot of longs building in, considering an increase in open interest for the Nifty as well as the Nifty banking futures. And on the whole, we also saw advances when it comes to the indices. But when it comes to open interest distribution, at this point in time, there's more accumulation around the 10,200 put, and that should provide as a support in the near term. On the other hand, on the higher end, we have maximum open interest in the 10,700 calls. So it's a 500-point range that we are expecting the Nifty to move within, at least in the near term. When it comes to changes in open interest, again, we saw most amount of activity around the 10,400 and 10,500 mark. We did see writing inputs, considering we saw the Nifty move higher. We'll be watching out for how this pans out in today's day of trade. But going in, the Nifty put call ratio rose to around 1.63, and we also saw the Nifty banking put call ratio come to around 1.3. And in terms of stocks, I'm watching out for Arvind, because we did see some weakness coming through. We did see shorts coming through. The other one that I'm watching out for is SRF. We did see longs come in. Even though the stock moved up marginally, there was a lot of accumulation in open interest. And finally, we have IGL, which will also be in focus. In fact, we've seen some of these gas companies remain in the spotlight over the previous few days. And once again, we saw a lot of longs building in IGL as well. So I'll be watching out for these. But now let's go across to Bloomberg's Heidi Stroud-Watts for the top international headlines.
Iran is bracing for the resumption of US sanctions in the next few hours, insisting it has survived years of Western pressure. Despite that rhetoric, though, the economy is sinking deeper into crisis, with a plunging rial, rising inflation and popular anger at high-level corruption. The Trump administration is reimposing sanctions despite the United Nations saying Tehran is complying with the 2015 nuclear deal.
We're very confident that our sanctions will be incredibly effective. And frankly, I can prove that already. As I stated, the Iranian economy today is already feeling the effects of this. It's already feeling the effects of this effort, not because the sanctions have snapped back. That won't occur until on Monday, but because the world and Iran knew this was coming.
The U.S. Army has begun building a new camp on the border between Texas and Mexico to house military and security personnel as thousands of Latin American migrants approach the country. More than 7,000 active troops have been ordered to border areas in Texas, Arizona and California. The Pentagon says it has not been asked to build facilities to house the migrants. Germany's ruling Christian Democrats have discussed recent election setbacks and their future after Angela Merkel. Delegates and lawmakers met in Berlin as their poll ratings fall to plan finding a new leader when Merkel steps down. She's giving the leadership up of the CDU and will not seek another term as Chancellor. She has led the party for 18 years and Germany for 13. Indonesia has ordered an official investigation into the operations of budget carrier Lion Air as a search for the cockpit voice recorder enters an 8th day. The audit will cover the airline's operating procedures, flight crew qualifications and coordination with the aviation industry. The government had already ordered a review of Lion's maintenance unit after reports of earlier issues. Global news 24 hours a day on air and at TikTok on Twitter, backed by more than 2,700 journalists and analysts in more than 120 countries. I'm Heidi Stradwatz. This is Bloomberg.
The word for the day is definitely waivers. As we reported out of Washington on Friday, 8 countries will get waivers to continue to buy or in some cases even resume buying Iranian oil. And that includes China, we believe, and India, the 2 biggest buyers, and also South Korea and Japan, which actually had stopped buying Iranian oil in advance of the snapback of sanctions. And now it looks like, having gotten a waiver, they'll be able to now resume buying Iranian oil. So there's definitely some critics up in arms about this, including a couple of sort of Iran bearish U.S. Republican senators, and that's put the administration a little bit on the defensive.
Well, a bunch of news that we're tracking this morning. I'm going to start off with Laura's Lab, where USFD has completed the observation for one of its facility in Andhra Pradesh with just one observation. Second in the list, we are tracking in Strides Pharma Science, where an inspection has been completed by USFDA with a 0 Form 483 observation for its Bengaluru facility, which is a key facility for the company. Oriental Carbon and Chemicals, that company is going to be buying back 2.96% equity for a consideration of around at a price of around 1,150 per share, which indicates a premium of 10 to 12% from the current market price. Also, we're tracking in Force Motors, which has reported monthly set of numbers there. And also in our list is a Future Retail, where Amazon is looking to buy around 9.5% stake in the counter. This is what ET has reported this morning. In bunch of earnings that we're tracking this morning, Axis Bank, which has put up a good show there. Slippages are at 10-quarter low for the bank. And if you look at the performance in terms of the top line and the bottom line, it's in line with estimates with what we were estimating. Well, SAIL, that's a miss. Operationally, it's a 10% downtick from what we were estimating. So that's again a counter that we like to keep an eye out. We've seen again a rise in employee expenses and a delay in execution is what the analysts feared, and has happened in this quarter. Sun TV Network, that's a mixed bag there that we're tracking. Well, top line, we've seen some amount of disappointment coming in on account of the ad revenue, but on bottom line front and the EBITDA front, which has been led by the bottom line push, has been led by a sharp uptick that we've seen in other income. So a mixed bag there. Second set of numbers, BSE, well, that's quite a disappointing show there. 3% downtick, and EBITDA has come down by 70% for this counter on account of higher employee cost. Also, we're looking at JK Cement, which has reported in line with estimates number, pretty much in line with what we were estimating. Godfrey Phillips, that's a mixed bag there. If you look at the top line growth, it looks muted, but the cost optimization measures taken by the company has clearly led to an uptick of 29% in operational performance of the company. VRL Logistics, again, we're looking at a mixed bag there. Revenue, the top line growth seems to be in line, but then if you look at the EBITDA, that's almost muted by 3.1% for this counter. Relaxo Footwear, pretty much decent set of numbers reported by the company, 18.5% uptick in the top line growth, and if you look at the EBITDA, that's almost a 20% uptick on the operational front.
I think that for us the biggest risk for us is the availability and price of coal. So we have gone through a quarter where availability was very tight, and hence we had to go on the market and buy on spot auctions and from traders, and hence our coal prices were up 12% quarter on quarter. Now generally after the monsoon quarter things get a little bit better. This time, reading in the media, we are still a bit worried because the power demand is very strong, and hence we are worried that power plants will still get favored and preference. So that's why coal is my biggest worry. Furnace oil prices have been on the highest side, but if oil prices, if you have noticed, have corrected down. So furnace oil prices could also correct down.
It comes with a lag, right? Furnace oil. But on the coal front, you're getting into an election season, and so those states will have high power demand, and so the coal would be diverted to those states. What is the strategy you have? Especially Q3 will also see some kind of pressure in terms of input costs coming in, though you have got your coal mine back, but it will take some time to ramp it up, right?
Yeah, I think that when I look at Q3, it will be flat with Q2 because we have already secured most of the coal that is required.
Okay.
So barring that, we will not get coal that is already committed, we should be okay, but it's going to be tight. Now, as a precautionary measure, we have also put in a bit of import as well.
Okay.
So we are getting some imported coal coming in as a backup because we are, as you said, a little bit worried whether we will get the coal that we are expecting.
Well, for ONGC, the numbers were operationally in line with a big beat coming in on the net profit front on the back of higher other income. Now, if you see the headline numbers for ONGC, the company's revenue were higher by nearly 3%, but the EBITDA rose nearly 7%. Margins expanded to 56.4%, while net profit jumped nearly 35% to close to 8,265 crore rupees. Now, on the operational side, the net realization stood at $73 per barrel, the highest ever reported by the company on the back of no subsidy burden. Now, on the sales side, the crude sales slipped 6%, while the gas sales rose nearly 3%. But due to higher realizations on crude, the company's revenue from crude increased marginally to close to 20,600 crore rupees. Revenue from gas sales rose nearly 7% on the back of higher volumes. Now, on the back of higher other income, lower finance cost, and lower foreign exchange losses, the company's financials were strong on the back of these three reasons. Now, if you see the other income, that jumped nearly 4 times to close to 2,394 crore rupees, aided by a dividend income of close to 1,300 crore rupees in the second quarter of financial year 2019. Now, foreign exchange losses, that fell nearly 39% compared to last quarter to close to 546 crore rupees. Lastly, the finance cost, that was lower by nearly 16% for ONGC, as it was able to reduce its debt by nearly 45% to close to 14,000 crore rupees in the second quarter of financial year 2019.
We're seeing close to a 15% growth on the NII front for State Bank of India. Profits will be down by 50%, but remember last time around in the same quarter last year, they had gains because of the stake sale in the life insurance business. So that's the reason the number will come down. This time around, higher interest cost and lower recoveries will dent the NII growth for the company. Retail book is extremely strong. Trend in fee momentum has been healthy. Expected the momentum to continue. Loan growth to improve on the back of the retail portfolio. Even the corporate loan growth is expected to be strong. Slippages this time around are expected to be slightly lower than what it was from the last quarter, because from the momentum from the NCLT cases isn't very, very high this time around, and credit cost will moderate from the existing level. Also watch out what the impact on the bond yields will be there. Because of the rising yield, there will be a bit of MTM hit that will come in on the yield curve that is hardening. So that's something that you need to watch out for State Bank when it reports its numbers during market hours today.
Well, for GAIL India, it is expected to be a strong quarter. Now, if you see the headline numbers, the company's revenue is expected to be high by nearly 3% to close to 17,800 crore rupees compared to last quarter, while the EBITDA is expected to be higher by nearly 8%. Margins are expected to expand to 13.6%, while the net profit is expected to be higher by nearly 21% to close to 1,500 crore rupees. Now, on the operational side, the gas transmission volumes are expected to be marginally higher to close to 108 million metric standard cubic meter per day, while the petrochemical volumes are expected to be higher by nearly 11% to close to 184,000 metric tons. Now, a strong quarter is expected from GAIL India on the back of hike in pipeline tariffs, higher contribution coming in from the LPG segment, and because of its LNG imports. Now, the petrochemical segment, that is expected to benefit on the back of higher product prices, higher volumes, and operating leverage. Now, the gas transmission business will benefit from the hike in tariff prices in one of its key pipeline and other key regional pipelines seen in the second quarter. Now, as this hike had a retrospective effect from April 1st, 2018. There would be a one-off which would be related to the tariff hike gains pertaining to last quarter that will be reported in the second quarter of financial year 2019. Now the LPG segment, that will purely benefit on the back of higher LPG prices, while the gas marketing segment, that could surprise in the second quarter as the US LNG volumes were likely to be higher in this quarter. Now US LNG imports are expected to boost the trading profits for GAIL India, as stronger LNG prices should lead to a trading gains on these LNG contracts for GAIL India in the second quarter of financial year 2019. Lastly, the key things to watch out for from GAIL India earnings would be their update on the progress on the key pipeline projects, management commentary on how they are placed when it comes to the US LNG contracts, and any updates on the pending tariff revisions would be keen thing to watch out for from GAIL India earnings.
So it will be a steady quarter for Cipla this time around. Top line growth of almost 5%, a bottom line growth of 7%, and EBITDA growth of 4%, which will mean margins will just come in slightly below the 20% mark this time around. Now the US business is important. We are seeing that will be aided by the rupee depreciation, the new launches. This time around we are seeing that, because of the launches that have come in, revenues will be over $100 million on the US front. On the domestic front, remember the acute season in India will aid domestic revenues for the company. If you're looking at some of the cost controls that the company has taken over the past few quarters, that will aid the operating margin, and as far as improvement in gross margins will aid the overall margins for the company. But nevertheless, pricing pressure is still there in the US, competition is still there, and the base has increased both for the US market and the Indian market, so expect Cipla to report muted numbers this time around.
Adani Gas will be listing on the exchanges today after getting demerged nearly 2 months back. Now the shares will trade for trade basis for 10 trading sessions, which means there cannot be any intraday trade taken in this stock. Now when Adani Gas was demerged from Adani Enterprises, the post demerger value for Adani Enterprises was close to 150 rupees per share, which means that Adani Gas could list at around 60 rupees per share today. So let's see how the valuations would stack up on the indicative price of 60 rupees per share. Now if you see at 60 rupees per share, the market capitalization of Adani Gas would be close to 6,600 crore rupees, and the valuations when compared to its peers like IGL, MGL and Gujarat Gas, the valuations are a bit expensive. Now for FY19, the price to earnings for Adani Gas is close to 30.6 times, while the EV to EBITDA is close to 16.8 times. But given the kind of growth prospects that Adani Gas has, these premium valuations could sustain for the company. Now if you see, Adani Gas is the city gas distribution unit of Adani Enterprises. Now currently it has operations in 4 areas, 2 in Gujarat and 1 each in Haryana and Uttar Pradesh. So far it's a very small company, but here's the interesting thing. Now the company has nearly more than 30 non-operational areas which would be operational in near future. Now it has more. So if you see, currently the company does a volume of close to 1.4 million metric standard cubic meter per day, but due to this more than 30 non-operational areas, this volume could rise by nearly 8 times to close to 10.5 mm SCMD by FY25. The total CNG stations could increase from 65 currently to close to 1,030, while the total PNG customers would increase from 0.35 to close to 6 million by FY25. So this is the kind of visible growth that Adani Gas has by financial year 2050 on the back of these non-operational areas. Now let's see how the financials stack up for Adani Gas when compared to its peers IGL, MGL and Gujarat Gas. Now if you see over FY14 to FY18, Adani Gas revenue saw a degrowth of around 4% over FY14 to FY18, but that was because of a slow expansion. But because of its operating leverage and because of lower cost raw material cost, the company's EBITDA grew at a compounded annual growth rate of 21% over FY14 to FY18, which is the highest reported by when compared to its peers like IGL, MGL and Gujarat Gas. Now, the company's net profit grew at a CAGR of 38%, again higher when compared to IGL and MGL. Now Gujarat Gas saw a net profit grew at a CAGR of 79% on the back of a low base that it had in financial year 2014. Now on the operational side, if you see, the company's volume growth was subdued because of a slow expansion that the company had in over FY14 to FY18, but its unit metric, that is EBITDA per standard cubic meter, now that grew at a compounded annual growth rate of 17% over FY14 to FY18, again the highest when compared to its peers like IGL, MGL and Gujarat Gas. Now on the balance sheet side, if you see, the company has a total debt of close to 311 crore rupees, but that should not be much of a concern because its leverage ratio, that is total debt to EBITDA, is less than 1 at close to 0.8 times. But given the kind of expansion that it has to do for its non-operational areas and for the existing areas, the debt number could rise for Adani Gas or else it could see a fund infusion via equity. So that is one thing that investors should keep an eye out for when it comes to Adani Gas.
नमस्कार सर, दिल्ली डोर स्टेप में आपका स्वागत है।
किस प्रकार से सहायता कर सकती हूँ? तो मैं आपको पहले डॉक्यूमेंट वेरीफाई करवाऊंगी।
मोबाइल नंबर जान सकता हूँ जिस पर आपने अप्लाई करा था हमारे यहाँ पर?
The Aam Aadmi Party has introduced 40 door-to-door services for residents of Delhi.
ओके, ड्राइविंग लाइसेंस लर्निंग है आपका। मैम, आपको अपना एससी का सर्टिफिकेट बनवाना है।
आपने सर राशन कार्ड के लिए अप्लाई करा था?
सर, आप लाइन पे बने रहे, हम आपकी जो रिक्वेस्ट है वो चेक करके आपको बताते हैं। ओके।
From ration cards to change of address on a driving license, several services can be availed under this initiative.
Approximate, we are receiving 13 to 14,000 calls on a daily basis. We are receiving the maximum of calls for revenue department, and apart from that, we are also receiving the calls of transport, and the rest of the other cases have been divided in the other department services.
This is how it works. One can connect to a call center executive by dialing 1076. A mobile Sahayak will then be assigned to you at the time requested. The Sahayak will come to your house to scan the required documents. The final document will be delivered by a Sahayak at your doorstep. This isn't an end-to-end service, and you might need to take an in-person appointment at some stage of the process.
बहुत प्रॉब्लम होता था, लाइन में लगना पड़ता था, टाइम खराब होता था, और जब लाइन आती थी कभी कभार तो टाइम ख़त्म हो जाता था। अब तो कोई वेट नहीं करना पड़ा, बहुत सुविधा अच्छी है।
Professionals and people who are working and have a busy schedule, they can schedule these appointments accordingly as per their convenience and get the services availed. Otherwise, for us to go to a government department to avail these services is very difficult.
The cost per service is just 50 rupees.
जी मैम, इसमें गवर्नमेंट फीस जो आपको कुछ नहीं देनी है, पर आपको सर्विस फीस देना होगा। तो 9 से 10 के बीच में हमारा मोबाइल सहायक आपके घर पे विजिट करेगा, तो आपको 50 रुपये उनको इन कैश देना होगा।
While the initiative covers 40 different services, the government expects to expand it to 100 in the coming months.
तो मैं आपकी और कोई सहायता कर सकता हूँ सर?
जी धन्यवाद मैम, कॉल करने के लिए। आपका दिन शुभ रहे।
Well, several stories just like that one on the website. In fact, there's good news for a lot of people, especially those that own their own vehicles. Petrol prices have been cut by over 4 rupees per litre and diesel by 2.33 per litre in the last 18 days as international crude oil prices fell. The price of petrol was cut by 21 paise a litre on Sunday and diesel by 17 paise according to a notification issued by state-owned fuel retailers. In Mumbai, petrol now stands at 82.28 rupees a litre and diesel at 76.88 rupees. In the international space, Chinese President Xi Jinping is delivering the keynote address today at the opening of the China International Import Expo in Shanghai. This after US President Donald Trump floated the possibility of a trade deal. Trump hinted at the possibility of a deal with China at a planned meeting between the two world leaders at a Group of 20 summit in Argentina that's scheduled for the end of this month. That's all we have for you in this edition of All You Need to Know, but up next is Indian Open, so do stay tuned. This is Bloomberg Quint.